Hey everyone, my name is Richard Ruane, and I am here to talk to you about Dim All the Lights, an upcoming Kickstarter for the very first Roseville Beach mystery book. Roseville Beach came out in December of 2022 and has been selling incredibly well. So we decided to sort of move the very first mystery book for Roseville Beach up in sort of the project priority list. And I've been working with a group of writers who are carrying over from the original Roseville Beach book. And today I'm getting to talk to you a little bit with a really short interview with one of my favorite people to work with, Sharang Biswas. Hey, Sharang. Uh, we have worked together on a number of projects. Well, for a long time, we have been friends and we have been convention roommates. Um, and
And
I've
now
been
we
to
have
you.
been co-jurors for a game
We
award.
have been co-jurors for a game award, but we can't really talk about it yet because it's not public knowledge yet. So we can't say,
You can't say
even though
which
it's only a
award.
few, we can't say which award, but it's only a few more weeks before we can make that announcement. I don't think we can say till the actual event,
I don't think so.
but
But
the
every
event's in
time any of
mid-July.
you viewers see a game award until we announce this, maybe Richard and
You can
I
worry
judge
if,
it.
yeah, you can worry that like, oh, did Richard and Sean work on that together? And it was a phenomenal experience because Sharang had already told me what I thought about games for like years before. So I was able just to repeat all the things that Sharang taught me about games and game design. Um, and it was not RPGs related or focused, so it was a
And it
chance
was
for me
cool
to
because it
do some
actually leveraged some of Richard's outside expertise that wasn't
outside
just for
expertise would
games.
be my day job, which is I
Yeah.
almost said my gay job, which all my jobs are my gay job. My day job, which is educational technology, uh, which has less to do with technology than the title would make it sound like. Um, but anyway, today we're here to talk about Dim All the Lights. And I asked you to work in this project because you had already worked on Roseville Beach. First, let's talk like who are you and sort of what kind of work have you done in games in the past for people who don't know who you are.
I'm Sharang Biswas. I am a game designer, writer, interactive artist, and professor in New York City. I teach game design. Um, and currently I'm teaching at NYU and Fordham, though I've also taught at like Dartmouth and Bard and things like that before. Um, and yeah, I've done a lot of work in the game space. I basically entered the game space in college because I took a class with Mary Flanagan at Dartmouth and started working on games then. So there's some games that I worked on in college I have credits for from when I was like, 20 years old.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've done a lot of my focus is RPGs. I've done some board game work. And a little bit of video game work as well, but my big focus is. Oops, sorry about the camera. My big focus is tabletop RPGs and LARP. I do a lot of LARP work as well. You might know my game Feast, which won an Indicate Award a couple of years back. It's a tabletop RPG where you play alien parasites eating the personalities and minds of humans, but you play the game by eating real food and using the real food as prompts for the storytelling. Um, I was also the co-editor with Lucian Khan of Honey and Hot Wax, an anthology of erotic art games, which is released by Pelgrane Press, who you might know, who made 13th Age and Night's Black Agents and things. It's a book. We got two grants from the Effing Foundation for Sex Positivity to bring together a group of 10 game designers to make games that further the conversations around sex and sexuality and how they intersect with games. So that's really cool. We were nominated for an Indicate Award. We were recognized by a couple of different places, so check that out. It has its own Wikipedia page I discovered last week. So that's really exciting when you've attained the heights of Wikipedia. And I've also worked on a lot of games by and for other people. So I worked on Dungeons and Dragons Live when the Icewind Dale book was releasing. I've worked on the Spire game by Rowan Rook and Deckard. I've worked on Jiangsha Blood on the Banquet Hall, which is a really interesting game about Chinese immigrants and vampires. Um, and yeah, I've worked on a bunch of different games in small capacities, written adventures, written chapters, written this and that. Um, yeah, those are some of my big ones. And if you're interested in some of my work, not all my work is available online because there are commissions and things. So, for example, I was artist in residence at the Museum of the Moving Image for a while. The stuff I made there is not really available online. But you can check out my work on my website, which is sharangbiswas.myportfolio.com, or if you want to purchase work on my itch page, which is astrolingus.itch.io. And I will admit that my website hasn't been updated in a year and a half to 2 years, so it is a little outdated. For example, all the fiction stuff that I've published, not all of it's on my website, even though I've published a lot since like I last updated it. So
So you also, and you did this in Roseville Beach too, where you did some flash fiction pieces, but you also write fiction,
yeah,
and do a little bit of games journalism or at least essay writing. Could you talk a little bit about that, sort of
yeah.
like kind of
So
what your kind of what got you there?
I started doing games journalism a long time ago. I had a course credit internship with a tiny magazine called Hardcore Droid when I was in college. Oh, sorry, when I was in grad school. And then after that, I wrote a lot for Zam magazine, which then transformed into a couple of different magazines over the years. But I've written a lot in various magazines. The last 3 years, Eurogamer has asked me to write in their Pride series, which usually comes out end of June or July. I forget when Pride Month in UK is. And I'm going to do that again this year. I'm also working on the article for another magazine this year. So I have done a lot of like games journalism style work. I wouldn't call myself a journalist. I'm more of an essayist in that regard. I don't
Mhm.
do like as much interviewing and fact finding and investigative stuff. Um, I do a lot of fiction writing. So yeah, for the original Moonlight book, I did both fiction writing, I wrote some fan fiction and some game design. I did some like character
Mhm.
design and things like that. And I like doing all kinds of stuff. I have a lot of fiction up on the various science fiction and fantasy magazines. Like I have some poetry with Strange Horizons. I have some fiction with fantasy. I have like 5 or 6 stories with Lightspeed. This year I've written like four, or I had 4 or 3 stories published with Lightspeed, some of which will be eligible for award season for next year's awards. So check those out. The biggest one this year is Real Magic, and then the most recent one this year is When Shiva Shattered the Time Stream. I'm also co-editing a big project where we're bringing 8 famous, up-and-coming, award-winning science fiction, fantasy, and horror writers to Dartmouth to pair with Dartmouth research faculty from across the school. So, for everything from engineering and computer science to like art history and sociology. And we're having them write science fiction based on that professor's research that will comment on possible futures that humanity might face. So, I'm quoted from that with Liz Gorinsky, who is a Hugo Award winning editor. She edited The Three Body Problem, if you know the book. I'm really excited with that because I'm like flexing my editing skills more, and we're producing a really nifty collection of stories that have a really interesting purpose. We're making cross-disciplinary connections, and we're bringing in some really cool authors. So, New York Times bestselling author Max Gladstone, who you might know, who co-wrote "This Is How We Lose the Time War." If you've been following the Bigolus Dickolus drama, well, not drama, funny stuff going on Twitter. Um, yeah, we're bringing a bunch of like really really cool authors for that. So I try and straddle the worlds of like art and design and writing because I and teaching because I get bored if I do just like one thing over and over again. Which is why it was really cool when Richard, you asked me to do multiple things for this project. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So as we go into dim all the lights, so for Roseville Beach, you worked on guest stars, which
Yes.
are sort of ready to drop in characters that like if a, and I think one of my things as a designer is I really like to think about what happens when a group gets together at a table and runs a campaign. And I know one of the things that happens that's not like a revolutionary piece of design, but still that one of the things that happens is somebody just shows up and just like, I have a friend in town and I'd like to bring them to the game tonight. And guest stars are sort of designed to be there for that friend. It's like, yeah, when you play D&D or something, you're just like, okay, your friend can play this NPC, they can play the innkeeper, they can play the monsters. We really wanted somebody, since Roseville Beach is a vacation community, and the core players in your game are playing sort of people who work in the vacation community. The guest stars are really just about like, who are the visitors, who's dropping in. Um, so
And I was really
what were some of
pleased with the guest star thing because it got us. You can because it's just drop in. You can make really bizarre characters and not
Mhm.
worry as much about what will their arc be or what might they do in game because it's a one off, right? So like, so I wrote like a couple, but like there's one that I wrote who's a guy whose wife died tragically, and then he to like change his life around. He started an ice cream like cart business, but the ghost of his wife infests the ice cream cart. And now that his wife has died, he realizes he's into dudes, and his ghost wife wants to help him reach his full potential. So is trying to like
Mhm.
wingman him as a possessed ice cream cart. That's really
Yeah.
strange. So it's a one up.
Mhm.
Or like I did a character where it's one of Medusa's statues has now come back to life and is like, "Oh, I'm a statue and now I'm a person. What do I do with my life now?" And I think that guest star mechanic really allowed the people you asked to contribute to the book to make
Mhm.
interesting creative choices, and like the whole
Right.
process of working on this project has been good. Like, I don't know if you guys listening know Richard. Okay, so the Moonlight Roseville Beach is somewhat inspired by the real world location of Fire Island, which is a queer
Mhm.
vacation spot near New York City. And
And
Richard
has been for almost 70 years,
many
almost 70
years,
years of
yeah.
being a very queer focused vacation spot, if not longer.
Right, and
Um,
Richard
yeah.
literally took a research trip to that vacation spot, stayed there for a week or two to like absorb the vibes and like write over there. And invited me to visit for a day to also like absorb, also to hang out because we're friends, but to like absorb the
Mhm.
vibes of the location. So like when I wrote
Mhm.
stuff for it, like I'd have a little bit of an idea. So like
Mhm.
if you're interested in like authenticity in like RPGs and stuff, like Richard put a lot of work into. Richard put a lot of work into RPGs. I know when Richard was doing the Sherwood Forest RPG that you have. What was the name again of that?
Sherwood. Yeah.
Sherwood. I know for a fact that Richard was watching every single Robin Hood movie he get his hands on, including those made in Italy, of which apparently there are surprisingly many.
There's
Um,
at least five that I can think of that were either Italian primarily or Italian co-productions. So
Yeah, and I love
yeah.
like I think getting real world inspiration for games can be very rewarding
Mhm.
and can make very interesting material for players to draw on when playing. So
Yeah. So this time you're working on a mystery,
yeah,
and I know you're still sort of developing, fleshing out your ideas. Um, what sort of makes you excited to be working on sort of like a mystery scenario for the game?
yeah. I've actually been thinking a lot about how mysteries work in role playing games. I had an article
Mhm.
last year come out in Dicebreaker about how indie RPGs tackle the idea of mysteries. And one of the
Mhm.
things Richard has directed us all mystery writers to do is it's okay if the different mysteries in this book have very different formats. So, unlike
Mhm.
some RPG books where all the adventures in it have a similar format, which is wonderful. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. It's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Mhm.
Richard has a different vision for this book, and each writer can do whatever they want with their mystery. So I'm thinking of
Mhm.
putting into practice some of the ideas I've explored in that article on Dicebreaker and think about
Mhm.
what do RPGs do with a mystery form that's different from like a short story or a movie or a video game or something.
Mhm.
Um,
Among those, what are the ones you're most interested in exploring?
um, Something I've been really keen on. So I'm a really big fan of Jason Cordova's game Brindlewood Bay and its offshoot
Mhm.
games, and a game I've been running right now, and I've written about both these in that article. I've been running a mini campaign, Tanner Wilson's game Magic School Mystery, and both those games come with the assumption that neither the players nor the writers nor the GM know the solution to the mystery at the start of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The solution to the mystery is created as you play the game. And that might sound weird to people who are used to solving mysteries in RPGs, but it actually works really well. I would recommend you take a look at the article that I wrote, and it explains a bit more. And I think it's a really cool way of approaching. I don't think it's the only way. I very much enjoy playing a game where the author and the GM have a mystery for you to solve and you're discovering. But I think it's another really interesting way of tackling mysteries. So I'm not sure if I'm exactly going to do that, but I am toying with some of those mechanical ideas in this. Another thing I like doing is, especially because Brindlewood Bay is a game that's not just about monster hunting, right? There are other
Mm-hmm.
things going on, all the social things going on. I'm really keen on exploring that. Like, I really want to make like the adventure partially also involves like helping people's romantic entanglements while also solving the mystery. So I'm keen on creating adventures that are like drama filled as well, and not
Mm-hmm.
everything can be solved by like beating the monster or like banishing the ghost or whatever.
Right, right.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Mhm. All right. Well, anything else you want to say about your work, Dim All the Lights, Roseville Beach? Anything else you're sort of wanting to bring up right now?
Yeah,
And then, yeah, we'll have a plug section in a second. But anything else you want to bring up about with
yeah.
that? Yeah.
I'm really interested, right? Because I like Dim All the Light. It uses an unusual core mechanic. The core mechanic is inspired by, if unless I'm wrong, McGay Baker's what was the name of the
Right, right.
game?
Siren.
A Run, right?
Mhm.
Which is a game about being teens on the run from agents who want to use your psychic powers for the government's
Mhm.
nefarious ends. So I love how Richard has used that as inspiration to make this game, and the core mechanic is quite unusual. If you haven't played Siren, I think that's really powerful. I also like a very focused setting. It is a game about a queer holiday island community, which is really cool. It also
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you mustn't play the game if you're not queer. It just means that the setting is very focused, which I think makes for more easier storytelling at the table. Sometimes people find that these storytelling games may be challenging, and I think specificity in setting and in
Mhm.
storylines help with that a lot. And I think Roseville Beach does that, I think, really well. Plus, the book has all this like inspiration in terms of fiction from various authors, including yours truly, and others. So I think it's a really good book, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a writer for it. I actually do think it's good. Also, the form factor of it is really lovely. There's a grand tradition. I'm sure all of you who are listening are familiar with this. There's a grand tradition of RPG people buying books and then never playing them. Right? They read the book for pleasure. They think about the game, and they never play it because hectic lives. I think this
Mhm.
book really allows for that if you don't want to play it because it's just a gorgeous book. So it's a lovely like thing to have. So when I got my contributor copy, I was like, ooh, um, that's really cool. I'm probably gonna run some of Roseville Beach in upcoming conventions this year. Um, I'm gonna go visit my ex-husband in Paris and France, and I keep threatening to run RPGs for him. This might be a great one to run for him and his boyfriend. So that would be fun. Yeah, so Roseville Beach, I think it's really cool. I'm excited to work on it, and I think y'all should take a look and try something. It's also very easy, so I recommend trying it out. So yeah.
So, any projects you want to plug coming up? Anything you've got coming up that you're pretty excited about or want to plug or
Yeah, I would keep an eye out on the Dartmouth Speculative Fiction Project, the one I mentioned
Mhm.
before. We're publishing a book through Lightspeed Magazine, um, and that is going to be really exciting because that is writers and academics coming together in a way that's like unusual and cool and exciting that way. Um, I'm working on an upcoming game with Michael Addison, who is the author of, who's the designer of a number of RPGs. What are the ones that come to mind? Oh my God, I can picture the books, but I can't picture the names. Richard, can you do me a favor and look up Michael
Oh,
Addison's RPGs while I talk? Oh yeah, Curse of the
one
House
second.
of Rookwood is one of them, where
Yes,
you
yes,
play a
right. Mhm.
cursed family. Richard, we played that together, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we played House. That's a lovely game.
it's a really,
I am a
really
big fan of
nifty
Michael's
game.
work.
Also, Michael Addison, I admire his work because he is a big fan of creating new game engines for his games, which
Mhm.
I'm not saying everyone needs to, or even he needs to, but he does that. I think that's really
Mhm.
cool. He has an
Yeah.
upcoming game that I also wrote for, which is called Richard. If you can help me with that,
Yes,
it's
one
it's
second.
Rebels of the Outlaw Wastes. There we go. Which is a
It
Mad
was also
Max
right on the tip of
inspired
my
game.
tongue
Yeah,
because both
that's
you
really
and Whitney
cool.
wrote for that. So yeah.
Exactly. A bunch of nifty games I've written for that.
Mhm.
But with him and with Lucian Khan, we work on a game called Augurs of Glamour, which is
Mhm.
about which is about uh, drag queens and other nightlife performers doing a road trip across America. Um, but they're also all wizards. They have a wizard van with a
Mhm.
giant mural splashed on the side, and that mural is actually part of the game mechanic.
Mhm.
And you are doing a road trip across America, doing late night concerts, so that you can find your way to a legendary party in Atlantis. I
Mhm.
worked on that. I'm also working on a commission from the National Academy of Sciences. We're making an RPG about botany. And it's not going to be, they're very clear, it's not a here's a learning game. After this, you will be able to pass your AP biology. No, it's a game
Mhm.
that is going to be a full on, like, cool game, but it's also going to talk about plots in a cool way. So I'm working on that. So keep an eye out for that. I also have some projects that I'm pitching, or I'm shopping around and pitching to publishers.
Mhm.
So stay tuned for that. And yeah, stay tuned, of course, for Dim All the Lights. I'm also on a couple of current projects. So if you've backed Girl by Moonlight, I
Mhm.
am going to be writing an essay for that. So if you're into RPG theory essays, um, stay in the loop for that. And I think Hakan Sela and Kate Himes' upcoming RPG Xenolanguage is going to come out relatively soon. And I have
Mhm.
contributed a whole indie, like a whole small game for that project,
Really cool. Okay.
about hosting an alien, like an ET sort of alien at home, and trying to
Mhm.
show them a good time, but also not revealing their secret. And I think, Richard, you play tested that for me, right?
Uh, I think so,
An
possibly.
early
I
version, the
think
second
I know
version.
I know I play tested. I think the most recent thing I play tested with you is the in
National
the
Academies game.
yeah, the National
Oh yeah,
Academies
it's
game.
so different from the
Yeah,
version you saw because we've been making many different playtests. So
yeah. Mhm.
I might
It
actually
sounded
playtest
like it.
again
So
because it'll be so different. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah. So I'm working on a couple of projects. Also keep an eye out. I have an upcoming story in Lightspeed magazine. Keep an eye on the fiction world. Yeah, if you're interested in my work. And keep an eye out for other collaborations with Richard and me because we tend to collaborate a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today. If you send me those links, I will add them to the show notes. And I think we are done with this short interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you everyone for giving us the gift of your attention.
Oh.